you're doing this just for the sake of having an academic background, just papers to fall back on, as the common phrase is said?
Oh yes. And in fact, even from the masters, I might be doing my PhD for a simple reason: to tell those who are educated academically that, you see, you can be this educated and become an entrepreneur. Because there's a notion that, which is pretty well changing, but there has been a notion that those who become entrepreneurs are those that have failed academically. So that is the notion that I want to change. So if I go for my masters, there was no need to, because even some of the lecturers, should I say they are fans? But yeah, like, I inspire them, and I've actually heard it a couple of times. Even in the lecture room, they say, see, this young man, and why? Because they are inspired in line with entrepreneurship. In fact, even after lectures, they also come to learn one or two things. So I'm not going there to get a job, but I'm going there to basically have the capacity to stand in front of those who are learned and tell them, say, listen up, you can be learned and become an entrepreneur.
My next question is in line with that. How important is the academic qualifications or academic background when one wants to get into entrepreneurship? I ask this also because last month our key speaker was the CEO of Liquid Telecom, previous business development manager a business enterprise manager at MTN, in Mark Townsend. And believe it or not, he actually revealed on this particular platform that he actually ended as far as grade 12 and is the CEO of Liquid Telecom there. But how important is the academic background, especially for the tertiary side of things, if one wants to at least elevate in the world of entrepreneurship?
All right, so I think let me give these two dimensions. So the first dimension is that I have no problem with academic qualifications. It is fine. You see, one who has undergone academic qualification is well placed to articulate and think at a certain level. If you put two people, one who has gone through academic training, there is pressure there, assignments and all such things. One who's undergone that, if put on the other end to become an entrepreneur, there are very high chances that he would be better placed than one who has no formal education. Why? Because the level of reasoning changes with education. I don't know if you're getting that. There's a way that academic pressure prepares your mind to handle pressure out there. So it is okay. One can be a degree holder. What that simply shows is that one is trainable. So I have nothing against academic qualifications. Putting two people with equal opportunities, one who has proper education and one who doesn't have, one who has proper education has chances of succeeding more. I think so. Why? Because the way you would run your business is in a totally different level. I have a certain uncle who has no formal education, and he was running, buses. Maybe let me not mention the number of buses because maybe you might end up knowing him. But these big Marco Polo buses, the big ones. So he grew his business. Then he married a certain lady who had a stepchild. Now, because he could not understand paper issues, he then had to utilize the stepson to do the signing of the papers and everything else. Then, unfortunately, they divorced with the wife. Then, after divorcing, things got to court and whatnot. But at the point of giving, wealth, he ended up owning a lot of wealth. I mean, the buses, the houses, and everything else. Then, what does the mother do? The ex-wife uses the son now. What then is unearthed was that the ownership of the company actually was the son's. So that is what lack of education does. And the way you run your businesses, it is also a little otherwise. But notice one thing. Education is not limited to formal education. There is formal education and informal education. So if you are to become outstanding, get education. be it formal or informal. And by the way, informal education never ends. And that is the one that you should pursue. Reading books, watching content that can actually build you, all that is education. So I have nothing against education. And by the way, just as a way of sharing, formal education had a very good place. Well, it still has a very good place, but it no longer guarantees success. Because if you look back in the days when our parents said, go to school, get a job, and become successful, they were right. Because back then, Zambia had two universities, the Copperbelt University and the University of Zambia. So if you graduated in the 90s, a job was already waiting for you. But 27 years later now, getting a job has become extremely difficult. Why? Zambia has in excess of 50 universities, offloading thousands of graduates every year. So now getting a job has become very, very difficult. In fact, even courses that guaranteed you a job, take for instance, education. If you graduated as a teacher around 2000, a job would be waiting for you. But now it is no longer the case. You graduate as a teacher, you might have to wait. In fact, with your qualification, you do not qualify to apply. Because the government says only those that graduated maybe 3 years earlier should then apply. And in fact, in 2018, 54,000 applied, only 2,000 were picked. Later, 27,000 applied, only 2,009 were picked. Now it is clear, if you graduated with a degree in education, if you don't use shortcuts, and at the rate people are being employed, you have to wait for at least 50 years before you are employed, without shortcuts. And now you might think, now that is just about education. No, it is just about teachers. Lawyers from 2018, when 300 were called to the bar, getting a job as a lawyer has become difficult. And that is why we have lawyers that have been called to the bar, past Ziali, getting as low as 1,500 kwacha. Well, that is if they even have something to get. That is how bad things are. And you might think, no, maybe that is just lawyers. I'll take you to the creme de la creme. Doctors, 7 years in class. Back then, once you're in your 6th, 7th year, you are assured of a future. But now, doctors are forming committees to vie for them to be posted. And those that had graduated in 2018, we are just posted now, December 2018, we are just posted late last year. And thanks to COVID, those are medical doctors. Now you who did anthropology, let us keep waiting. So tables have changed. So now it is about time that we then got to realize that, we need to monetize our skills. So entrepreneurship is no longer a luxury. It is a necessity. We then need to see how we can position ourselves.